Hey guys, we all know that buying bottled water is a huge waste, right? It's a waste of money, it's a waste of plastic, but is the convenience worth the cost? Well, let's find out. Hey guys, welcome back to Saving Green. My name is Josh. Here on this channel, I crunch the numbers and look at the science to help you make informed decisions that help your wallet and the planet at the same time. And today, we're talking water. Yes, staying hydrated is so important to your health, and there's no better way to do it than just drinking plain old water, right? But sometimes when you go to the store and just spend a few cents on a bottle of water, you may not realize how much it's really costing you in the long run. And today, we're going to look at that a little bit further. Have you ever wondered how much water costs from your tap? Well, if you ever checked your local utility bill, you can try to figure it out. But it's not that straightforward. And that's because most utility bills are read in units. But units of what? Well, it's units of volume, but the volume is 1 ccf, or centrum cubic foot, or 100 cubic feet of water, or about 748 gallons. And each of those units is processed every month. And basically, if you stay within a certain limit, you're probably charged a fixed rate. Like where we are, if you stay under 3 units, we're charged just under $16. That would mean that our per gallon cost is just about half a cent. Now, if we use over that, then we're charged a premium at a rate of $1.25 for the first 1,000 gallons, and it goes up to $4.50 per every 1,000 gallons if we use even more. So we actually get charged more the more that we use, which is kind of good because it disincentivizes being wasteful when taking 35-minute showers. So that's a good thing. But that means that even if you're paying 10 cents for one of these half-liter bottles of Dasani water, that's 150 times more expensive than what you would pay just by filling it up from your tap. And at more realistic retail prices, 50 cents, 75 cents, well, you can see what a ripoff it actually is. Now, for those of you concerned about the quality of your drinking water, don't be. The EPA has very strict and regional guidelines for your water that comes from the processing facility. And in fact, those guidelines are often stricter than what the FDA uses to regulate commercial bottled water. And if you're curious about that, there was a study done in 2007 by an independent worker at the MWRA who ran extensive analysis and actually came to the same conclusion. I'm going to link to that study below, as well as the EPA guidelines for your own reference. Now, there is one caveat though. The EPA regulates water at the facility level where it's being processed and filtered, but it doesn't regulate the piping, which is a local, municipal, or city issue. So it's up to your local governments to make sure that your piping is up to speed and ultimately safe. And unfortunately, that's what led to the crisis in Flint, Michigan a few years back. Now, if you're curious about the safety or color or taste or odor of the water, just go ahead and test it. There are many kits online, or you can get a professional to do it for you. Now, if you don't like the taste of your water, then the most common way to filter it out is with an activated carbon filter, whether you buy it in a Brita or whether you just use it in your refrigerator. It's basically the same technology. Now, most Brita filters, like this one here, cost about $3 to $10 per unit, and it filters about 40 gallons of water. So that would mean that you're averaging about an extra 7.5 to 25 cents per gallon just in the cost of the additional filtering. Now, how much activated carbon is in this particular container? Well, fortunately, another YouTuber did a nice analysis of different retail brands of activated carbon filters, like from Home Depot, Target, and Brita, and they range from about 2.1 to 2.9 ounces for every filter. So if we take an average of about 2.5 ounces for every filter, that's 71 grams. So 71 grams for every 40 gallons would be 1.75 grams of activated carbon for every gallon of filtered water, just so you know. Now, the actual filter itself weighs in at about 113 grams from my own measurements. So that would leave about 42 grams of plastic. And 42 grams is about 4 times the mass in plastic of one of these plastic bottles. So that means that in terms of plastic waste, a Brita filter will actually pay itself off in about a day, or after filtering only 2 liters of water, or the equivalent of volume of 4 of these Dasani bottles. So it really definitely makes sense to get one of these Brita filters from a waste standpoint. Now, in terms of the activated carbon itself, well, it's not aerosolized or combusted, so it doesn't really contribute to atmospheric CO2. And I don't see why it couldn't just be composted, because it is fundamentally just charcoal or carbon bits, and it could be used to deodorize your compost piles, and I've read that some people actually do that. So that is one way to deal with the waste or the used activated carbon when you're done with the filter. You could also just send it back to Brita directly, or there are partnerships with TerraCycle if you live in an area with that program that could also be used to recycle these used carbon filters, or you can drop them off at your local waste facility. Now, in terms of your refrigerator, they use larger filters like one of these bad boys. Just make sure that it's NSF or ANSI certified. The branding really doesn't matter much, but this thing, for example, is $15 and it filters 300 gallons of water, and they need to be changed about every 6 months. So they're actually a better value in actuality than the Brita filters are. But let this be a reminder, if it's been a while, check your fridge filter and make sure that it's not out of date. Now, if you were concerned about the carbon footprint of the plastic itself, basically the rule of thumb is, from my research, the mass of plastic produces about 3 times its weight in CO2. So one of these bottles weighing in at 10 grams would produce about 30 grams of atmospheric CO2 just by manufacturing alone, and a Brita filter would be about 4 times that, just based on its mass. Now, pure water is great and all, but sometimes you just need a little flavor. So how much would it be if you bought powdered Gatorade mix, for example, as opposed to pre-mixed Gatorade like this? Well, not surprisingly, you're saving a boatload. In fact, this 2.16 kilogram container of Glacier Freeze Deliciousness costs about $11 to $12 depending on where you get it. And if you were to get the same in terms of pre-mixed Gatorade, like for example, a 1 gallon container of Gatorade comes in, let's say at $4.69, that would be $42. You're actually saving 70% just by buying the powdered Gatorade mix, which is quite a bit. Plus, you can customize the amount of powder to your liking. But even more important than the price is the weight. You see, one of these canisters weighs in at just over 2 kilograms, whereas 9 gallons of premixed Gatorade would weigh in at 34 kilograms. That's 14 times heavier, and that has significant implications on transportation cost and fuel and the carbon footprint of transporting all that extra weight, not to mention the added cost of refrigeration at the retail level. Now, if you're curious about the specifics about transportation and refrigeration cost of the beverage transportation industry, I'll link to my previous video where I discuss different beverage container options, as well as the article referenced down below with those details laid out for you. Now, what about soda? Well, it's hard to find brand name soda syrups, but SodaStream does a pretty good job and is a pretty affordable option. At $80 today's pricing for a starter SodaStream kit, including a 60-liter capacity CO2 canister, which is actually pretty comparable to today's price of $1 or $1.50 for every 2 liter of branded soda. Now, if you add in the price of flavor syrups, they come in about $5 a piece, and they make 9 liters of mixed carbonated soda with a SodaStream. So that comes in at an additional $1.11 for every 2 liters of soda. So it could be a little bit more expensive making SodaStream water than it would be to just buy it from the store. But pricing aside, the main advantage yet again is due to weight savings. A CO2 canister from SodaStream weighs in at just over 1 kilogram and contains 410 grams of gaseous CO2, or about the equivalent an average car would emit driving 1 to 2 miles. Now keep in mind that if you were to buy 60 liters worth of soda, Diet Coke, or Pepsi, that would come in at 60 kilograms, plus packaging. Now, every 2-liter bottle of soda weighs about 52 grams worth of plastic. That's an additional 1.5 kilograms, which is actually more than the weight of the CO2 canister in metal, which is completely recyclable and reusable. So if you compare the masses of both of those options, buying a SodaStream would save 98.3% of shipping weight, which is astronomical, and probably a similar amount in volume. So when it comes to the environmental impact, SodaStream actually does make a huge difference, even if the pricing isn't much better. So when it comes to beverages, from an environmental standpoint, it's really a no-brainer to use your own water whenever you can. By using a refillable container and filling up at home, you're saving a huge amount of natural resources, you're saving a huge amount of transportation cost and energy, and you're greatly cutting back on your unnecessary packaging and waste. Not to mention, if you're tired of plain old tap water, you can mix it up with some flavoring and still save a little bit of money too. So I hope you found this video helpful. Any likes and subscriptions are greatly appreciated. Thank you again so much for your time, and I'll see you in the next video.